All right. Well, hope everyone's had a good Shabbat. Almost time for Shavua Tov. It's been good. Good Drash last night by a brother, and that was very good Drash. I love, personally, like very applicable stuff we can apply to our lives. It's one reason I'm really a fan of the way that Yiddishkeit, the way that Judaism teaches things. It's because it's applicable. How does it apply to me? How can I apply this to my life? You know, kind of a random thought, but a lot of people talk about the kind of days that we're entering into, the doom and gloom type of stuff. There's like a couple Sukkot sites where it's pretty much all about the tribulation and what it's going to look like. And I was having this conversation with you guys, about the tribulation and gathering up food and all this stuff. Well, so that's all speculation. Speculation is not a problem. Being prepared is not a problem, but it should be every day we treat today like Mashiach is going to return today. Treat every day like that. Treat every day like he's returning today. Times are going to get rough. But speculation, what does that do right now? What does that do for us? That's why having stuff like what Mayim shared is very good. It's applicable. That's how the Torah is, where we're always learning new stuff. For instance, last year, I did a horrible job with the counting of the Omer. I missed tons of nights. I was really, really off of it. Probably missed like 3/4 of the Omer counting. It's not good. Especially when you realize that the Omer, each day, is preparation. It's like moving through 49 different levels of the soul, of preparation, coming out of a spiritually low place, coming out of a very, like the sages say that the Jewish people were at the lowest spiritual low when they were in Mitzrayim, in slavery. And so the counting of the Omer each day for us is preparation. And every single day, we're working on ourselves, preparing ourselves for receiving the Torah. Shavuot. Not only the Torah, but the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit. Every single day we should be preparing ourselves for that. Especially when we're going through this stuff about purity, about all these type of things. So, that's just a side note. And I guess another side note is she was talking about Nida. And Nida is actually, it means separation, just like Kadosh means separate. So we were talking earlier about how, maybe the world, with worldly eyes, you look at this thing about the Nida, about a woman being unclean and stuff. You look at that worldly eyes and you're going to be like, what is that, But Nida means the same thing that Kadosh means. It means set apart, holy. So every time a woman is during a time of Nida, then it's a time for that woman to have that time to herself. A set apart time, separate, That's good for us. We all need more of that. We all need time and just the idea of being set apart and holy. Anyway, so in Vayikra 12, 1-5, Parashas Tazria, it says, Hashem spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the children of Israel, saying, when a woman conceives and gives birth to a male, she shall be contaminated for a 7-day period. As during the days of her separation, infirmity shall she be contaminated. On the 8th day, the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. For 33 days, she shall remain in blood of purity. She may not touch anything sacred, and she may not enter the sanctuary until 2 weeks, as during her separation. And for completion of her days of purity. If she gives birth to a female, she shall be contaminated for 2 weeks as during her separation, and for 66 days she shall remain in blood of her purity. So we had the question earlier, why is the time of separation for having a son way shorter than for the separation of having a daughter? The one answer was it's a chok. A chok, chukim are commandments that we don't necessarily understand. They're just chukim. God says to do it, so do it, We can look into it. Maybe there's some kind of scientific blessings. Maybe there's this, maybe there's that. Who knows? I mean, there's some stuff. But a spiritual way to look at it, in the Torah and in the Hebrew culture, everybody has a very distinct position. Everybody has a specific and distinct, spot and position and purpose in the body. Men, women, children, leaders, the community as a whole, the Levites, the priests. It didn't make anyone better than anyone. It just means that this is a body. We need to all work together in order to complete what we're here to complete and what we're here to do. We all know that if a member in your body is not working well, it's going to cause issues. Like Paul was talking about, if you have pain in one little member, doesn't matter if it's your pinky toe, none of your body has peace. So the reason I'm talking about this is in the Hebrew culture, women spent more time in the home. These days, that's so sexist, right? Feminism, women go out and do their thing. Okay. Here's the thing, though. Biblically and culturally, women spent more time in the home because they were taking care of the children while the father was out working. And so the fact that a woman was in separation with a daughter for longer goes to show you right off the bat that a woman was going to be spending more time in the home than a son. Because after 7 days, on the 8th day, the male was going to be circumcised. And when there's a bris milah, then that means there's tons of people coming over. Lots of people coming over. It's a beautiful celebration. And it shows you that men, we're supposed to be prepared, like it says, a man shall leave his father and mother and cling to his wife. It's like the man that goes out. And the woman, until she's married, she remains in the household of her father and mother. Whereas the man, he goes out, he leaves and goes to do that. So, kind of a nice story, kind of to bring this with a woman being in the home, in the house. It talks about this woman named Anna in the 2nd chapter of Luke. It says, now there was one, Anna, a prophetess, the daughter of Phanuel of the tribe of Asher. She was of great age and had lived with a husband 70 years from her virginity. And this woman was a widow of about 84 years, who did not depart from the temple, but served God with fastings and prayers night and day. And coming in that instant, she gave thanks to the Lord and spoke of him to all those who looked for redemption in Yerushalayim. This is a beautiful thing. She was a widow for 84 years. And she was in the temple day and night, fasting, praying, completely devoted her time. That's in the house of God. Talks about the woman of valor. The woman of valor is building up the household. She's making scarlet, linen, clothing. She's making sure that her household is fed. She's, rising up early and doing all these things. What does it say about the husband? It says that her husband is in the city gates. In the modern mind, especially a feminine mind, this is like Where's the woman's freedom? Where's her empowerment, you know? But the most empowering thing is for a woman to be able to be in the life of her children. That's so empowering. Huh? She directs the future, seriously. You know, and with this thought, comes out of Shmot, Exodus 2:9. It's a story about when Miriam followed Moshe down the river, and then Pharaoh, you know, Pharaoh's daughter had him, and Miriam said, I can find you someone to nurse him. And so she got her own mother to nurse him, and says in the Chumash, and for verse 9, it says, and nursed him. This too was Yochebed's reward for protecting the babies. Not only did her own child survive, but she nursed him and inculcated him with Jewish beliefs during the most impressionable years of his life. It's out of the Midrash. So while she was nursing him, she wasn't just nursing him, she was speaking over him the values of the Jewish values, Torah, everything that was revealed to them at that time. That's part of the reason that Moshe became the great man that he was. That's part of the reason that deep down inside he knew who he was. Like I was sharing earlier, that one custom is that in a Jewish home, they actually hang scriptures over the cradle and stuff. And they're speaking scriptures over them. Like from, even when they can't even speak or understand. Because, you know, the Word of God is the thing that created the entire heavens and the earth. And every single soul comes from Hashem. So deep down within the soul, it understands and knows the Word of God. Because the soul came from God. So in this world, again, you know, like, especially with feminism on the rise, it's misguiding. We have so many children that are lost because they don't have, they're just sent away. I remember reading through the book about the Rebbe, and he was talking to this guy that was he was very into philosophy, very, very bright. And so he was talking to the Rebbe, and he was surprised because the Rebbe knew so much stuff about it. That he's like, what? Especially about philo. And he started to tell him why he was very dead set against philo. And until this, he didn't know. One of the things he was very for was for kind of like the public school system, making children wards of the state. Take the children away from the parents, send them into a school system, and the state raises them. Because if you tear children away from their mothers and their fathers, and there's not that love, and you can teach them, you can do anything, you can, without that love, you know, and that's so against the grain of what we're called to do as parents. The Shema tells us to speak about it when we rise up, walk in the way, sit in the house when we retire, all this stuff. The parent is to speak Torah and teach Torah unto the children, you know. So it's a beautiful thing, you know, because, you know, in the working world, I understand it's hard. But it's like today, most parents, they're in work and they send their kids to daycare from a tiny age. Or public school system. Some of us are in that. Okay, fine. But here's the thing, if a child is not having a strong godly education in the home, because children learn more in their home from the parents and in their family life than they do in school or anywhere else. And so if a child is being sent into the public school system where God is not being taught, godliness is not being taught, if a child is not hearing it or being immersed with it at home, what is he surrounded by? The Jewish model is for a mother to be able to speak over her children and teach her children Yiddishkeit and Torah, about Yeshua, about prayer, about all this stuff. You know, I'm so impressed with with the Vega family, you know, because mine is very strong. She homeschools them, and all of them know like 10 different instruments, and they're learning Hebrew, and you know, it's amazing. I mean, they're strong in Torah. That's because they have a strong mother, a strong Jewish mother behind them, teaching them day in and day out. That's what children need. So why the world and feminism is telling women that, oh, you know, men want you to be in the house and do this, that, and the other, and that's like taking away your freedom and your power. The most empowering thing for the body of God is a strong Jewish mother teaching her children the way in which they should go. Giving them the love that they need and the guidance that they need. Children are starved of that these days. All of us after this should thank our mothers for the wonderful job they've done. I'll call my mom and thank her. She taught me scriptures growing up, and she did her best job. But seriously, the way of the world right now is, you know, by the time they're tiny, like daycare. Parents aren't even raising their kids anymore. The daycare and the schools are raising the kids. And after they get home, what's raising the kids? TV, phones. And we wonder why we're living in such, you know, such times. There's no direction. You know, we look at the culture. There's a reason for that the culture is like this. And as the people of God, we're supposed to be set apart. We need to look at the world, and we're supposed to be different. We're not supposed to learn from them. That's what Hashem says numerous times. You know, you know, they actually say in Judaism that the Shekhinah, that's the feminine side of Hashem. They say that when speaking of a woman, they say, you know, they use the word Shekhinah for women, for the wife. What term or title do they use for the husband, for the man? HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He. Because the Holy One, blessed be He, this is dealing with justice and Torah and laws, and, you know, with the woman, it's a Shekhinah. It's the beauty. It's the emotional side of it. We need both. Because naturally men are much more drawn towards the legal aspect of stuff, and the women are more in touch with the emotional aspect of stuff. And really, because Hashem is a perfect mix of both, all of us should try to become more of a mix of those. Like for men, it can be easy for us to become very intellectual and not in touch with our emotional side. And for women, it can be that they're too in touch with the emotional side and not in touch enough with the intellectual side of Hashem, of knowing Hashem, studying His Word. And so for all of us, we need to learn how to find the balance, all of us. Because that's really what Hasidic Judaism is all about, is merging this with this. The masculine and the feminine, merging it. You know, they talk about in the Sefirot, Gevura is like strict. It's judgment, it's strength, Gevura. And on the other side is Chesed. Chesed is loving kindness. It's mercy. So the one side is the masculine and the other side is the feminine. And what's in the middle between these two? Tiferet. Tiferet means beauty. When you have the perfect balance of Gevura and Chesed, you have Tiferet. That's what you get when you perfectly merge the masculine with the feminine. The masculine, you know, is more about doing. It's about doing the mitzvah. It's a lot of the outward stuff. It's about studying. It's about being in the city gates and speaking. It's about going out there and laying hold on the kingdom of God with force. Whereas the feminine, like in the feminine aspect of serving Hashem, is prayer and worship These things are hidden. This is what you do in hidden. This is, anybody can see you putting on tefillin, but nobody can see your emotional connection to Hashem. That's hidden within you. Just like the woman is in the home, modest and hidden. In the same way that when we're connecting to Hashem in that way, it's hidden. No one sees it. So we've got the masculine side of it, which again is doing His will, doing these things which is evident, going out into the field, and the woman is in the home. And just we need to find our purpose and our role. We need to study His Word and find out our role. It's not about who's doing this or that, or who's more special, or it's about doing what Hashem has called each and every one of us to do.
Does the hand look at the foot and say, I'm not a foot, so I'm not part of the body?
No, it doesn't. So with this, this is just kind of pondering on this part of Tazria, about the male and the female, about the daughter and the son. The fact that the daughter is in the household more. How can we explain it? But something I saw from it is that it shows you from the get-go that a woman is going to spend more time in the household. And that's not a bad thing. We need it. We need it. We'd be completely lost without our mothers. We'd be completely lost. But we also need the father to be there at the end of the workday. It says when you rise up and when you retire. The father's got some time before he goes to work to share a little Dvar Torah, or to pray, to put on tefillin, to do shakri with his son. And then in the evening, sitting around the dinner table. As men and women of God, we should just try and strive to be the best that we can be, and especially for all of us young people who don't have families yet, to recognize our roles as godly men that are going to raise the children according to the Shema, men that are going to work hard for their families and be a pillar of faith. And then as the young women, just to know how important you are to your family, how important you are to your future children, whether they're going to walk in the ways of God or not. You need it. Next part I want to talk about is Vayikra 13:6. Says this. It says the Kohen shall look at it again on the seventh day, and behold, if the affliction is dimmed and the affliction is not spread on the skin, then the Kohen shall declare impure. It is a mispachas. He shall immerse his garments and become pure. His garments. My brother last night sharing his Drash, and there's a few different ways to look at it. With Metzorah, with saras, with leprosy. Because there was leprosy with the house, there's leprosy with clothing, and there's leprosy on the skin. Each of these becomes more personal. The house is around you, it's not very close. All of a sudden you have leprosy on your clothing, that's a bit closer. And then on your skin, that's it. It's personal. And like he was talking about, it lines up with the nefesh, the ruach, and the neshama. The nefesh is the most outward part of who we are. It's like the house being infected. And then you have the ruach, which is more personal. And this is like the clothing being infected. And then you have the neshama, which is our deepest essence. And that's like our own skin. But another way you can look at it, Tanya talks about this in the very Kabbalistic idea. Our soul has 3 garments. The 3 garments are our thoughts, our speech, and our actions. That is what our soul is clothed with. So they say that with the thoughts are that's the deepest part of us. If your thoughts are infected, that's like the surat of the flesh, the thoughts. That's the deepest, closest, most personal part. And then you go to the speech. That's like the clothing. It's still coming from you. And when you have the actions, that's the most outward part. Everyone can see that. That's like the house being infected. So when it talks about the cleansing the clothes, it says, if the Kohen saw that it did not spread, then it says that they were to immerse, and then they were to immerse the clothing. So we'll talk about the cleansing or the immersion of those garments of our soul. In John 13:8-9, it says, Peter said to him, "You shall never wash my feet." Yeshua answered him, "If I do not wash you, you have no part with me." Shimon Peter said to him, "Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head." I love Peter, man. He's all out. He's either, "Don't wash me, Lord." He's like, "If I don't wash, okay, then do my hands and my head and my feet." Love it. Gotta be like Peter. All in. Seriously, if it's you, tell me. And he dove off the boat. You should be like Peter, man. He's awesome. The point is Yeshua said, "If I do not wash you, you have no portion with me." And it's interesting that Peter said, "Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head." And we read in this week's Torah portion that when the person was being cleansed, that part of it was that he was going to be anointed with oil on his right ear, on his right thumb, and on his right big toe, which is very interesting. It's the same thing that the Kohanim went through, that we read about. And so it's like not only the hand or the feet, but the hands and the head. It's that kind of cleansing that we need. So how does this line up with the garments of the soul? It says this in John 15:3. Yeshua says, "You are already clean because of the word which I have spoken to you." We've been cleansed by his word. It's a beautiful thing. This is that immersion that this person had to go through. Ephesians 5:25-30. Says this: "Husbands, love your wives, just as Mashiach also loved the congregation and gave himself for her, that he might sanctify and cleanse her with the washing of water by the word, that he might present her to himself a glorious congregation, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that she should be holy and without blemish. So husbands ought to love their own wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. For no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it, just as the Lord does the assembly. For we are members of his body, of his flesh, and of his bone. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh." So this is that cleansing. We're cleansed by his word. It's a beautiful thing. Because when we walk out his word, this is what cleanses us. And it says in Psalms 19, it says that the Torah of Hashem is perfect, converting the soul. That's what his Torah does. It cleanses us. It converts us. It makes us more like him. So what this idea of the three garments of the soul, in Tehillim 1:2, because one of the garments is thought. So how do we cleanse that garment? Tehillim 1:2 says, "But his delight is in the Torah of Hashem," in God's Torah, "and in his law he meditates day and night." That's how we cleanse that garment of our soul, thought, by meditating and thinking upon his Torah. This is actually like something I've been really working on. This is like, you need to develop discipline. It's not easy, seriously. Like, you can study, like I can study something first thing in the morning, read a bunch of stuff, and then literally not think about it for hours and hours and hours. Talking about silly stuff, thinking about silly stuff, working, not even thinking about it. I'm telling you, meditating upon the Torah of Hashem day and night is not an easy task. Try it sometime. We should be trying it every day. If you try it tomorrow, after you read some from the Torah portion, you try to meditate on it throughout the day, you'll see how difficult it is. You have to literally develop that. But that's how we cleanse that garment. Garment of thought, by meditating and thinking upon his Torah. Like Paul says, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are good, holy, just, think upon these things. That's what will cleanse. Like Yeshua said, his word has cleansed us. When we think upon his word, we're cleansing, we're immersing that garment. And what about speech? What about the garment of speech? It says in John 12:49, "For I have not spoken on my own authority, but the Father who sent me gave me a command, what I should say and what I should speak." This is the garment of speech, to speak his words. That's actually part of the mitzvah, at least in Talmud. When we're studying, we actually speak it out. When we're reading through Torah, we actually speak it out. When we're studying from Mishnah or Talmud or any part of Scripture, we actually speak it out. It doesn't have to be super loud, but you speak it out because there's power in that. There's power in actually speaking out what you're studying. So that's how we cleanse that garment of our souls, by speaking out his word when we're studying it, or by speaking it over people's lives, by discussing it. That's awesome, like here on Shabbat, it's amazing, how long we can spend talking about it. It's a beautiful thing. It shows that people here are serious and they're studying it out. It's awesome when we can have like a 30-minute conversation about one interesting aliyah about Drash, about leprosy. That's how you know people are studying. That's how you know. Speaking it out. That's how we cleanse that garment of the soul. What about the last one? It's actions. Doing God's will. It says in John 5:19-20. Then Yeshua answered and said to them, "Most assuredly I say to you, the Son can do nothing of himself, but what he sees the Father do. For whatever he does, the Son also does in like manner. For the Father loves the Son, and shows him all things that he himself does, and he will show him greater works than these, that you may marvel." This is how we cleanse the third garment of the soul, which is actions. We do it by doing God's will. This is how we keep these three garments clean and pure. Because just like we can keep them clean and pure, we can also allow them to become unclean. And like we read, literally like clothing filled with sarat, like clothing filled with leprosy. It talks about in the Tanya about the Sitra Achra, which is literally the other side. Sitra Achra means the opposite side of Kedusha, of holiness. And when you really start to think about it like that, you're either speaking, thinking, or doing according to Kedusha, or you're thinking, speaking, and doing according to the Sitra Achra. There's no in between. If you're not speaking words of Torah, if you're not speaking words pertaining to God, you're speaking things that are the opposite of Kedusha. Doesn't even have to be a bad thing. It just means that it's not holiness of God. Whenever we talk about some silly things, whatever, you can do that. It's just saying, when you really start to think about it like this, you become much more aware about what am I talking about throughout the day. how much time do I spend speaking in the Sitra Achra, or how much time do I spend speaking in Kedusha? And then the thought. If Kedusha, if the thinking process of Kedusha is to think upon God and think upon the Torah and think upon all these things, then that means that anything else that you think of, even if you're thinking about the football game this Sunday or whatever you might be thinking about, that's Sitra Achra. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. It's just outside of the realm of holiness. And then the same thing with our deeds. Anytime we're not doing deeds in Kedusha. But here's the thing. Here's the beautiful thing. You know, it says in the Brit Chadashah, it says, work as unto the Lord and not unto men. So whatever we do for work, as long as we do it as unto the Lord, that is a place of Kedusha. Because we know that the commandment is 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. So it's literally a mitzvah. No matter what our workplace is, when we show up to work every day and work on 6 days of the week, that's fulfilling that commandment. It doesn't matter if you're working at a gas station or a computer tech or putting up gutters, whatever you might be doing. We can be doing it from a place of Kedusha, which is holiness, or the Sitra Achra. Because I feel like this is something, I really am trying to focus on this more, especially in the time of Kana D'Omer, when we're trying to prepare ourselves for receiving the Torah and receiving His Ruach HaKodesh, and this is what's celebrated on Shavuot. How else can you prepare yourself? There's no other way besides cleansing the garment of your thought, speech, and actions. There is no other way. That is everything. That's everything in the life of a believer, in anybody's life. Your life consists of thinking, speech, and doing. So if we want to prepare ourselves for Hashem, then that means that we're going to work on the speech and the thought and the actions. And in regard to speech, we talk about how Lashon Hara is the main thing that would cause leprosy. Speak the evil tongue. And I'm like, when I was in New York last, I bought the Chavetz Chaim, because I used to study that. The Chavetz Chaim is the most detailed work in the realm of Lashon Hara. It's a daily thing. It's very beautiful. But I realized I need work in that area. Even if I'm trying to be funny and I tell a story about a friend, that's Lashon Hara. Or if I'm like, Lashon Hara can even be saying something in a person's face. What Lashon Hara is bringing out somebody's negative qualities. God does the opposite, It says that love covers a multitude of transgressions. Love, it's interesting because the Hebrew word kala, which is bride, one of the meanings is my perfect one. That's one of the things kala means. Bride, it means perfect one. Everybody knows there's no literal perfect bride, but the bride, like the woman herself's not perfect, nobody's perfect, but in the eyes of the husband, she is perfect. That's how we are with Yeshua. We're His kala. We know we are so far from perfect, but in His eyes, we are His perfect one. It's a beautiful thing. We need work in that area. I definitely do. And the thoughts, really trying to meditate upon His Torah day and night. Really trying to meditate upon what I'm learning. Because if you don't do meditation, this is like one of the things that shows that something is kosher is when it chews its cud. Chewing the cud is literally the process. The animal takes it in, and it's in one stomach, comes up, chews on it more, brings it back down. This process happens however many times. That's how we need to be with our study of Torah. We study it first thing in the morning, chew on it, digest it. Then we remember to think upon it, we bring it back up, chew on it more, meditate on it, digest it. We should be doing this numerous times. That's part of what it is, one of the signs of a kosher animal and something we can learn from. Because when you actually meditate, like I know for myself, if I just sit there and read an aliyah, every day, and I don't think about it, what's that actually doing? It's when you think upon it. It's when you steep, when you let it steep within you, when you bring it up, when you digest it. That's what we have to do. So the last point I want to talk about, which has been mentioned a few times, just about leprosy. Mine brought it up earlier. It says it's in Sanhedrin 98b. One of the things the Mashiach is called is the leper, which is very, very interesting. Because we know that in the Jewish world, for 2,000 years now, Yeshua has been like a leper. A leper was a person that was removed out of the camp. And Yeshua has most definitely been removed out of the camp of Israel in the Jewish world. Very interesting. Also, a sign of the Mashiach was that he would heal lepers. This was a big thing. This is the sages knew this. They knew when Mashiach is on the scene, lepers are going to be healed. Because you know what God said to Moshe, a man like unto you. What does that mean? Well, one of the three signs of Moshe being the Redeemer, if they didn't believe, is he put his hand, normal hand, puts it in his garment, pulls it out, leprosy, white as snow. And then he puts it back in his garment, pulls it out, it's regular again. This shows you that the Mashiach would be one who would be able to heal leprosy. This was a sign. And it's interesting. There's like 4 different people that would have to bring an offering for uncleannesses. And we talk about 2 of them now in this Torah portion. We talk about the lepers and the woman who gave birth. And you mentioned a Zava and a Zav. These are 4 people who would have to bring offerings for their purification to be made whole or complete. And it's interesting, because when it talks about Miriam, when she has Yeshua, it says very clearly, on the 8th day he was circumcised, and then it says that she brought the offerings and did everything according to the law of Moses. Exactly what we're reading about. Yeshua's mother did it. Huh? Zav is the man. And another time we see it is that a leper had to bring these offerings. I guarantee you, not one priest that ever said that someone was unclean from leprosy. Once he proclaimed that, not one priest in history until Yeshua ever saw a person who formerly had leprosy come to him with these offerings that we read about, with this process that we read about. Not one.
It's recorded in the Talmud, right?
It's recorded in the Talmud and the Bible. It was only Naaman, and Naaman definitely wasn't going to the priests afterwards to bring those offerings. And Miriam, they were still wandering in the desert then. So not one priest. That means all this stuff. What was it for? That's why it says in Acts 6:7. It says, then the word of God spread, and the number of the Talmidim multiplied greatly in Yerushalayim, and a great many of the priests, Kohanim, were obedient to the faith. A great number of the Kohanim were obedient to the faith. That's kind of interesting. You know why? Because every time Yeshua healed someone from leprosy, he said, go and do the things according to the law of Moses, as a testimony to them. That's what he said. He literally, as a testimony to them. What was he saying by that? As a testimony to them. The testimony that he was the Mashiach. So when these priests get a bunch of especially 10 lepers coming in and they're like cleansed, they're probably scratching their heads like, what? Everybody knew that when Mashiach was on the scene, lepers are going to be cleansed. It never happened before. And all of a sudden, lepers are coming in left and right. So it's no wonder that a great number of priests became obedient to the faith. They knew. They knew Yeshua was Mashiach because he was healing lepers without a doubt. It's a very, very beautiful thing to think about. Leviticus 14:49 to 53 says, to purify the house he shall take 2 birds, cedar wood, crimson thread, and hyssop. He shall slaughter the one bird into an earthenware vessel over spring water. He shall take the cedar wood, the hyssop, the crimson thread, and the live bird, and he shall dip them into the blood of the slaughtered bird and into the spring water, and he shall sprinkle upon the house 7 times. He shall cleanse the house with the blood of the bird and with the spring water, and with the live bird, with the cedar wood, with the hyssop, and with the crimson thread. He shall set the live bird free toward the outside of the city upon the open field. Thus he shall provide atonement for the house, and it shall become purified. This is the law for every tzoras affliction, and the nesek, and tzoras of the garment, and of the house, and of the seis, and of the sapachas, and of the baheret, all these things which this Torah portion talks about. This is very, very interesting because it's in Shir Shirim Rabbah, right? That they said that Mashiach is likened unto the voice of the turtle dove, right? That's something you mentioned. The voice of the dove. It's in Shir Shirim Rabbah that one of the things Mashiach is likened to is like a dove. The voice of the turtle dove. And this is very interesting. Because one thing about doves is there's different animals, but there's few. But one thing about doves is they mate with the same one for their entire life. Only one. Like a lot of animals don't do that, but the dove is one of them. Literally faithful to its mate the entire life. There was water, there was blood, there was crimson thread, and there was etz, which is cedar wood. Does this sound familiar? I'll tell you, it says in Matthew 27:28. Matthew 27:28. Says, then the soldiers of the governor took Yeshua into the praetorium and gathered the whole garrison around him, and they stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him. What is a scarlet robe made of? A bunch of scarlet threads. I guarantee you, I mean, maybe not 100%, but I'm pretty sure that the wood used for crosses or the beams then for crucifixions were most definitely the same kind of wood. They were cedars of Lebanon.
Mm-hmm. They had to import it because Eretz Israel had very little trees.
So there's the cedar, because in the Hebrew it says etz, which means tree. Doesn't mean a little stick. In fact, in the Hebrew versions of the Brit Chadashah, that's the word used also. Etz, wood, tree, cross. So we have 2 of those. And here's the last one to think about. It says in John 19:34. It says, but one of the soldiers pierced his side with a spear, and immediately blood, and water came out. So we have the scarlet thread, we have the cedar wood, we have the blood, and we have the water. Very, very interesting. And knowing that the Mashiach is likened unto a dove in different places, actually. Shir HaShirim Rabbah is one of them in the Midrash. You know what's very interesting is that in the English, when we read about the man that was released, remember Pilate brought out someone that was customary to release someone right before Pesach. In the English it says Barnabas, but in the Hebrew it's Bar Abba. We know that means son of the father. So one of the sons of the father was killed while the other one was released. Well, he was Bar Abba. Yeah, you're right. Which is very, very, very interesting. And we know that Bar Abba, Barnabas, he was a sinful man. Here's the beautiful thing. You know what it is to be a leper? Being a leper means that you are removed from the community of Israel. You're removed outside of the camp. They call lepers the living dead because they're alive, but they're as good as dead. They can't work. They can't intermingle. They can't do anything. They're out there, like we read about in the Haftarah. If we stay here, we're going to die. If we go there, we're going to die. Let's go over and see what the Ramians are up to, you know? And one of the things Yeshua said is, I have come only for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. He's referring to Ephraim. He's referring to the 10 lost tribes of Israel. What does Hosea say about them? Or what does God say? He said, I shall call you Lo Ami, not my people. But then he says later on, in the same place where I said Lo Ami, I shall say Ami, my people. The children of Israel were like a bunch of lepers that were removed outside of the camp. What is that? That's galut, that's exile. And Paul says, I think in Ephesians, it said in numerous places that you who were far off have been brought near. And it's beautiful. One of the doves was killed, and his blood and the water was put onto the other one, and the other one was set free. That's us. We're the one that is covered by his blood and by the water of cleansing, and we're set free. And just like Bar Abba, he was definitely a sinner. He got set free. The perfect Lamb of God, the Son of God, died. And in his blood and the water, the sinner is let free. How beautiful is that? That's who we are. He's brought us near. We were all like lepers. We were all outside of the camp of God. And because of Yeshua, because of the crimson thread, because of the stake, and the water and the blood, we've been brought near. Baruch Hashem. So how can we show appreciation for this beautiful thing which Yeshua has done? It goes back. We can work on cleansing and immersing the 3 garments of our soul. Our thoughts, our speech, and our actions. He died that we could go free. How much of our lives do we waste? He died so that we might live. It's like a big concept he pointed out to me. The children of Israel were not set free just to go and live their own life. Now we can go and do whatever we want. Now we're not enslaved. No, they were literally freed in order to become servants of Hashem. And Paul talks about in Romans 6, 7, 8. He talks about, I was once a slave to sin, to my flesh. Now I'm a slave to righteousness. You're either enslaved or serving Pharaoh or you're serving Hashem. So Yeshua, you know, the fact that we've been cleansed by his blood and by the water, by his word, by his sacrifice. He gave us life, not so that we could go and waste it and be materialistic and be worldly and live like the rest of the people in the world. Think like the rest of the people in the world. Speak like them. Do what they do. His sacrifice was so incredible, and I think I myself need to do a better job of living. You know, that dove went free. We go free in his blood in the water. So we should use every single day of our life to serve him and to use that freedom to serve him and to bless people and to bring godliness into the world. To make straight the paths, to make a way for the Lord to come in. This is what we're doing, and this is why it starts in the home with a good, godly Jewish mother and a good, godly Jewish father and good, godly Jewish children. Seriously, you know? All it takes is one or two Jews to change the world around us. Look at Hadassah and Mordecai. Look at Yosef. Look at Daniel, Ashak, Meshach, and Abednego. Look at Yeshua and his 12 renegades. We can change the world. Like, we can be used to do mighty and great exploits for him, like it says in Daniel. So I pray that we would speak his words and do his will and live our life in the freedom he's given us for his glory.
Thank you.